Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Experience.
I've never seen anything like this.
The ultimate IMAX 3D event on February 14. It's time for battle. Alita, Battle Angel.
I'm gonna need you to stand way back. I'm with her.
Hello. This is Adolph Jake. Today I'm with Jake Jarvis.
Hello.
And we are doing a spoilerific review of Alita Battle Angel. So, I already did my review, so we're going to do a quick, before we get into the spoilers, a kind of a spoiler-free kind of version with Jake. So Jake, what are your thoughts of the movie, spoiler-free, and please mention if you are aware of the manga and anime.
Oh, I'm very familiar with the anime and the manga. Well, the first series anyway. I have never bothered to really get into the later versions of it. So I went into this movie very familiar with the source material. Enough so I could tell what came from the manga and what came from the original video animation. But I'm not going to bore you with all that because it's not important. Because I feel a movie should be able to stand on its own two legs. Well, this movie is dazzling. It is a visual feast. It's shot in it is real 3D, and it shows. One of the most standout moments for me is when Jennifer Connelly, who's playing Sharon, Ito's ex-wife, character that wasn't in the manga, she was just in the anime, walks out in a navy outfit. You can see the fur, each individual strap sticking out in depth. I was completely blown away, which didn't really surprise me that much. Rodriguez, people forget, he shot movies in native 3D several times. So that's why Cameron picked him to take over this project when he was too busy with his Avatar movies, because Rodriguez knew how to shoot film in 3D, and it showed. This movie is worth it alone just for the 3D. It is absolutely spectacular.
Now, that scene you mentioned, I don't remember that scene at all.
Oh, you remember her walking around in her blue? Yes, she had several outfits, but the blue one is one that really stuck out to me because that fur just all was. And that wasn't the only scene like that. The dogs, because there are lots of doggies in this movie, one in particular. And parents, you know your kids. There is animal death in this movie. It's off camera, but the audience will know. And there were several kids crying at my screening. They were very, very upset. It's not nearly as graphic as the anime.
Now, for me, the best 3D scene was the fight underneath the bar with the character that has multiple arms that stretch out. That looked awesome.
Oh, and the whole motorball sequence. Oh, that was amazing. That was almost Ben-Hur and episode 1 pod race good. I just wish it had gone on longer.
So, for the 3D, it sounds like you would give it a great 3D.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is probably this is one of the absolute best 3D presentations ever.
Now, for me, I had some problem with it kind of seemed inconsistent. Like some shots, it was not there really. Like the people talking to one another, it was just kind of flat. And I feel like it was either the really awesome action scenes or it was just like really nothing there. So,
Okay. The only scenes I noticed, there were some scenes with matte art and the deep background. It brought the 3D brought a little attention to the fact that it was art, but that was so minor compared to stuff like several of the scenes where oh yeah, this is very violent movie. If it wasn't cyborgs and the blood was blue, this would be an NC-17 level movie of violence. So parents, you may want to take that into consider. This is not a kids movie.
now it is very violent, I'll give you that, but it doesn't very feel gory. Like there is dismemberment, but there is not like guts flying out and everything either, you know?
Yeah, this isn't nearly as violent as the manga or the anime. Not nearly.
Going back to the 3D, you know, I really did like. There's a lot of dark shots that look great. I watched this in
Mhm.
IMAX, and you know, there was some parts here and there that I was like, okay, that could have been better. That could have been better. Some parts that in some ways I was disappointed, but some ways the action scenes, which is why you're seeing this movie, were great. So I was able to be like, you know what? Overall, you would definitely have your money's worth, and you have a great time watching this in 3D. For me, it wasn't perfect, and I wanted it to be perfect, but I felt like it's great still.
Yeah.
So onto the movie itself, without spoilers. So what are your thoughts of the movie?
Okay, the movie came across to me more like a pilot episode of a TV show, more than being a contained movie with a beginning, middle, end, which is kind of a trend in movies today. It might frustrate audiences a bit. I mean, I wish they had did more like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and just like we're going for it. We're gonna put as much and contain this. This is the movie. I feel is much better than the anime because anime really leaves you hanging.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to do a cliffhanger and another way to do a cliffhanger. And, there's a way that you can feel like you had a satisfying conclusion. And there's a way, and then you can still have your breadcrumbs leading to another sequel. But then there's ways to do it where it basically cuts it off. And you're like, all right, if you want more, go to see part 2. And that's where I felt in this one. And it kind of pissed me off because I was like, okay, I'm getting excited here. And then, oh.
Yeah, but I did like the fact that they adapted more of the story and threw in more stuff about Alita, uh, uh, backstory, and and the main villain,
So,
Nova.
yeah, that's where it kind of lost me because it felt like there's too many things going on.
Hmm.
And they could have just simplified this and made it a little bit easier. And, just I gotta give credit to the main actress here, Rosa Salazar, who played Alita. I thought she was fantastic.
Hmm. Now I had what see I when I was looking the movie, I said it wasn't the eyes so much that bugged me; it was the proportions of her head. See, in the manga and the anime, Alita, Gally in the in the manga, uh, her hair is like really big, like I don't know, like Susie Sue of Susie and the Banshees. I mean, she has big '80s hair, and the proportions are gorgeous. But in this movie, it just her hair is so flat in comparison. It just kind of throws the proportion off. So to me, it was just kind of weird.
Now, for me, watching I kind of got used to it right away, just because I liked her acting so much. I thought she was just adorable and beautiful and completely a badass in every way. And she was just so charming that you can't hate her. She's just so innocent. I mean, she doesn't stay innocent, but she starts off really innocent. And I really like the Dr. Ido, I think it is, or Professor Ido.
Christoph Waltz was perfectly cast as Dyson Ida. Yeah, they changed the name for the movie. Dyson is a kind of a thing Cameron likes to honor scientist James Dyson, because he's named characters after him in some of his other movies.
Yeah, he gets credit for each Dyson vacuum cleaner that gets sold. No, seriously though, Dr. Ido, he was just mysterious. He was really good. I really liked him, and it's like you don't really fault him. He's not really a bad guy, but he kind of just is a complex character, and I really, really liked him.
Yeah, and the movie, they changed some things up, like Alita. Okay, I guess I should mention. Okay, the manga, the character's name is Gali, and in the manga and the anime, Ido names her after his deceased cat. There isn't a daughter. That was a smart move to change, because it really upped the stakes of this world and stuff, and it really explained why Ido and Shara weren't together anymore. And it also gave a real justification to why Ido had a child's cyborg body in his workshop. Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I didn't know that going in, and I was like, oh, cool, okay, that makes sense. And, if it would have been the cat, I'd been like, so what? I mean, I know.
Okay, and Alita is also the name of what is one of the most famous of the silent era prototype sci-fi movies. In fact, it even predates Metropolis movies. Alita, Queen of Mars. It's a Russian silent movie. Some people consider it the very first science fiction movie. I wouldn't go that far. I would consider Frankenstein, the silent version, to be the first, but that's just me. But Alita is, it is, if you're into sci-fi, really hard and movies, I would recommend checking out Alita, Queen of Mars. That's where it came from.
The other characters, Jake, what do you think of them? I really hated with a passion Hugo.
Yeah, I've never liked Hugo. Hugo, I think, is a dirtbag unworthy of Alita's love.
Well, okay, so on to his acting and his writing. I thought that made him terrible, not just the character behind him. I thought he was just awful. I put this in my review that I feel like they just hired some random person off the street to read lines because it was just so bad. For me, acting.
To me, he was just a red shirt. And that's probably more so because it's one of those things. I've known this character's fate for decades.
So, the rest of the characters I felt like were all one-dimensional, very basic. You kind of know a nugget about them. You kind of know a little piece of them, and then that's it. You don't really get that much. They introduced 20 different characters here. So, I think that acting overall, besides Alita and Dr. Ido, I thought was really bad. And the writing's really bad. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with that or no?
I didn't think it was bad, but knowing this is still a James Cameron movie, even though Rodriguez directed it, you can tell his fingerprints were all over it. I mean, it has the same depth of character as most other Cameron movies. So that didn't really surprise me. I mean, I came in knowing that it was going to be dazzling visual spectacular and characterization would be about an inch deep.
Now, the special effects and the action are awesome. I will not deny that at all. I was totally invested in this world that it presents. I really felt like this feels lived in. And that's a hard thing to kind of talk about, but it's a thing that you kind of see and then you could make sense of it and understand, this is a world I believe can exist. And, in science fiction, that's important because if you don't believe it, then everything else kind of falls apart. And I did believe that here. I did believe this is a world that could exist. It's not our world, it's the future. It was kind of funny because the movie started and it was like the 26th Century Fox or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I joked,
which is even hilarious because Fox is about to go bye-bye.
Well, I thought it was hilarious. I spoke to my wife. I was like, "Oh, that's before Futurama starts." Because Futurama is, of course, set in 30th century, and they actually used, 30th Century Fox or 20th Century Fox made a logo for Futurama for saying 30th Century Fox, and they allowed it. So it's just kind of like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe it's part of the Futurama extended universe.
So hopefully Bender's in the sequel.
Oh, that would be... I mean, if they could reference it, that would be a great... maybe Bender's, like, traveling through time and collecting stuff, and you just see him in the background, and you're like, that's only a big joke for Futurama fans.
Yeah.
Because Bender's big game and how he went back in time to steal stuff. But let's digress. No, what do you think of the art design and the look of the world in this movie?
I thought it was beautiful. They took a lot of visual cues off of Blade Runner and in the movie Rollerball, which were smart. Because the manga is heavily influenced by Blade Runner and Rollerball.
Okay, so
I also liked that Cameron. They were smart to since this world the Alita takes place in North America in the 26th century. They were smart. They set it in Panama City, in Panama, in the 26th century, and they also made the cast even more racially diverse than because face it, the anime and the manga, they have like white characters, a few black characters, and almost everybody's Asian. Which even in the 26th century is going to be kind of weird in North America.
Yeah, that's part of the authenticity that I feel, this movie does have with that, where the world is believable because the world in the future will be more diverse than it is now and it was in the past. And, just having that there is kind of one of those things where it's not a big deal, and it is what it is. And that's, just part of that world building that you don't really think of it the same way because so many things have happened since now and then,
Oh, yeah. And people are like hard bodies and meat bodies. and it seems like almost everybody has cybernetic parts.
Yeah, and that was like a normal thing. It wasn't like a strange thing. Only the rich had it. It was just like everyone had robots parts in them of some kind.
Hmm.
Except for, I think everyone does, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So, what would you give it? I have a score of 1 to 10.
Uh, I would actually go as high as an 8
Oh, wow.
because I think the visuals and the action scenes and the 3D compensate for the story. Now, the story I would give the plotting, the script, that alone I would give it a 5.
Okay.
But I would bump it up 3 simply. Oh, just those scenes when when Hugo gets vivisected. Wow, that looks awesome. When Alita gets oh my god. Even though I knew it was coming, I was still shocked. I still put my hand over my mouth. Oh my god. And I knew. It's like I've known for 20 years what happens. And it still got me. I mean, there were so many gorgeous scenes. The motorball race. I mean, that was gorgeous. I mean, this thing is a visual spectacle. I mean, turn your brain off. Turn your brain down. Don't turn it off. And just also. Oh, and I guess we need to talk about the big bad who we are sort of introduced to, Nova, a little bit.
Okay, before we get there, so when I walked out, I was like, okay, this feels like a 7 out of 10 out of me, and I was like, okay, there's problems here. I wasn't in love with the acting, I wasn't in love with the writing, I wasn't in love with some of the story elements, and it did leave me wanting more, which is both a compliment and a negative. And when I woke up, I was like, no, I mean, I do love the visuals. I'll give you that. I do love the action. I'll give you that. But it can't make up for the bad writing and the bad stories. And there's some cringe-worthy scenes there that are just like, ugh, bad. Especially now that Valentine's Day passed, there's a heart one that was just like, oh my god, will that scene end? It's just so bad. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Also, I want to know how Chiron knew to be at the church with all of her equipment to save Hugo.
So yeah, there's a lot of a story that is not. There's plot holes here. The plot holes. There's so many different things that were underexplained that it kind of just like, okay, it's underexplained, fine. Like you said, it feels like extended pilot for a miniseries or something, and so that's where it kind of I want if they tightened it up and just gave me the characters I needed and gave me a story that I needed. If they wanted to put lead a path to Nova and say there's more to the story than at the end, then I think I would have been more okay with it than having a cliffhanger ending. So, okay. I think that's it for the relatively spoiler-free section of this review. So, let's kind of start with where the movie starts. That you see Dr. Ido, and he's just like going through a trash pile, and he finds Alita's head. And then he says, there's still a brain in here. And, which, okay, how does he explain how that works? Still, I mean...
Hey, this is a question I've had for 20 years, actually more than 20 years, about the manga, the OVA, and now this movie. Okay? What happened to Alita happened about 350 years ago. So how in the hell is her body on top of the trash heap?
Yeah, it was a little too easy to find it.
Yeah, exactly.
And like the brain working. Now, okay, I didn't want to say this in the spoiler-free version, but in some ways, this story reminds me of Ghost in the Shell, but a whole lot better.
Yeah, this is kind of this is one of the big mangas of the 90s, especially in the West. I mean, this Vampire Hunter D and then earlier Akira, they were kind of the big ones. The ones that kind of all the anime fans really worshipped at the altar of.
Now, I mean, is that like a common thing where people say Alita and Ghost in the Shell are cousins, and like in themes? Because I was really expecting at some point Alita they say, "Well, you're not really a human; you're a robot." But they never went there, and it's like, well, it doesn't explain how human brain can survive in that thing, you know. So is Alita a robot or is she a human?
She's what they call a cyborg. She was a human. Major spoilers. She's from Mars. Her original name was Yoko. She was one of the orphans on Mars. And then there's some stuff in some of the later series that I've heard about and haven't read. So if I'm hoping I get it right, is that their chips were put in their brains. So that's why that's one of the reasons why her brain could survive so long.
Okay, that's something the movie definitely should have at least given a clue about. You don't have to explain it entirely, but it's just like, okay.
The only thing they did was the other characters you were introduced to in flashbacks from Mars also had the big eyes like Alita, which I thought was a smart move. If you're gonna have Alita with big eyes, you should have a reason for it. So it seems to be a Mars thing. So I guess when Schwarzenegger's eyes popped out almost at the end of what
Total
was
Recall.
that? That's what happens to you on Mars. Your eyes get big.
So, you know, the professor takes the brain of Alita back home, and then she puts, you know, his daughter's pieces into her, and, you know, kind of trains her and kind of gets her going. And you have like the assistant there trying to help out too, which I kind of feel like was a thankless role. Like they shouldn't even had her. Nurse Gridhoud, I think the name was. It might as well just been like a basic robot there, because she had like 2 lines. You know nothing about her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then she eventually finds Hugo, and they go out to play, kind of thing, like kids. You know, it you know, it was kind of weird because like the body, you know, they said it was a girl, and they did say it was young, but never specified the age. But it did look like, you know, 10, 11. It didn't look like, you know, a fully formed, you know, adult.
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody who's followed a lot of anime and manga knows that a lot of these stories are created with very young children. I mean, usually under 13.
Yeah.
They're hyper sexualized and hyper violent.
Yeah. In this one, it's not really sexualized, so it's actually, you know, probably for the best that they, you know.
Yeah, children, they kind of went away from that, and they also went away from a lot of the German. Which is also another one of those. What the heck? I know the Japanese are obsessed with Germany, especially during World War II. So, don't ask. I don't even know why. I just know it's a fact. I just roll my eyes and just go, God, why?
So, it didn't really bother me, her body being a girl's body, not a woman's body. That, you know, it was you were aware of it, seeing it, but it wasn't like sexualized. If it was sexualized, it would be uncomfortable. It'll be awkward, I think.
Yeah, but once she gets her older body from the technology, she alters it to be more adult.
Yeah. So anyway, she meets Hugo, and Hugo tells her about the world, and it's like, oh, and then go out and kind of explore the area, and they do notice that there's like murders happening. It starts off really innocently and very nice and gentle, and Alita is just so adorable, and she's just so clueless, but it's not like it's just a really sweet innocence to her.
Hmm.
And like she doesn't have to understand language; she already gets it, which is makes it convenient for the plot. But fine. And then like you start hearing about murders happening in the town, and then she sees that her dad, or not dad, it's like a father figure, but the professor, or I keep thinking professor, but I know it's not professor, it's doctor,
Dr. Ito.
seems to leave out really late at night, and eventually you figure out that he is part of a elite group of people that are like what's it?
Warriors. They're like bounty hunters because there really isn't any law enforcement
Yeah,
down in the down on the ground, so they hire people to be licensed bounty hunters to deal with criminals that the city above, Salem in the movie, decide they want they don't want running around messing up their garbage dump, basically.
so that's one of the things you discover, that there's a big floating city in the sky that the regular people that are down there cannot visit, but it's like for the elite rich or something, and you don't understand it, but you kind of interested in it because it's a city in the sky, and it's the only city in the sky that's left. Eventually, you learn.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, anyone would connect with that and like, oh, I want to go there, just because,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And you find out the reason that's the only city left is because there was a war with Mars, and the Martians blew them all out of the sky.
and that's part of Alita's backstory that is you get little glimpses of, but you don't get like the whole story of. But I thought that was really interesting. I really wanted a lot more of that Martian stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, this makes enough money. I'm sure we're gonna get a hell of a lot more Martian stuff.
well,
That's coming up in the story.
it's gonna have to make money overseas, because right now it was number one this box office weekend, but it was number one with like 25 million or something, and the
Yeah,
cost.
it did better than projections. Uh,
So
Depending on who you believe, it needs to make between 350 and 500 million to be in the black.
yeah,
But it hasn't opened in Japan or China, which, if you think Alita was popular in the 90s in the US, it was nothing compared to Asia.
yeah.
I mean, this is considered one of the great, most popular mangas of all time.
So yeah, we'll see if we get a second story to this, or more. But so eventually learned about the sport called the ball. Or it's kind of like it resembles kind of like the ancient ball game from like the Aztecs and Mayans that used to play. Like you have to like go around in a pit and like put the ball in the hole or something, which eventually got inspired to be like basketball here in the U.S. But this is like a roller ball kind of thing, and they have a scene where they're trying to play, and it was fine. But I don't like Hugo. I think Hugo's bad.
Oh, Hugo's a douchebag.
Um, so yeah, you get to the point where like, okay, what's going on here? And then you figure out that the Dr. Ido is part of the hunter. What is that term? What are they called?
Hunter warriors, and they're bounty hunters.
It's just a generic term. I really hate that name.
Yeah. Uh, I I don't remember. See, I haven't read the manga or seen the anime in over 20 years, so my I don't think that was the name they used, but I wouldn't swear to it because I don't remember it being that dumb. And Alita, oh yeah, when Alita's following Ito out, looking, trying to find out if he's in the manga, there were all these streetwalkers being killed, and but in the movie they don't make the victims sex workers. They just kind of make it everyday folks who are working and out and about. And Lita's following him and comes across trouble, and she just goes all Bruce Lee on this guy's ass. Just like, wow, that's the with the Panzer Kunz. I think I pronounced, my German sucks. Sorry. Uh, and it's a Martian anti-gravity martial arts that's been forgotten. It's from the era, and it was something that the Martians developed so they could, particularly cyborgs, so they could do martial. It's hand-to-hand combat in zero gravity.
So, that's when Alita battles to kind of save her, Dr. Ido, because they build like a mother, like a father-daughter relationship, and you get some glimpses of the past, and she doesn't have her memories, which is basically a really old trope of amnesia, but it makes sense. She's a cyborg, and she's been buried for 350 years, so but she's more interested in that and to see how battling and being part of this, and so yeah, you eventually you had the first real action scene, or amazing action scene in the street, and that was awesome.
Yep.
So then what happens?
Well, he freaks out because he recognizes which is, I'm like, if this is a forgotten martial art, how in the hell does he know about it?
Yeah.
Just asking. Just asking.
And then he orders Alita to not go out unless it's dark. And then, she rebels. But then eventually you actually get the reason why. And you understand why. And it it's dangerous. And, understand about, her daughter, or his daughter, his live human daughter. And
yeah,
that she was killed by like an intruder, which was a cyborg that he helped. That apparently Dr. Ido helps everyone repair their stuff and only charges a little bit amount of money or something. I was kind of confused how the business aspect works for him, but fine.
Yeah, maybe he gets paid in food and stuff.
Because they did joke around in that, like, you can't get paid in oranges, money, but somehow they still managed to pay the bills. But, one of the cyborgs came in at night. And
well, they live in a junkyard, pretty much. I mean, they live in Zalem's trash dump. So I imagine the rent is not too steep, with garbage being dropped on your head, practically.
Anywho, so yeah, Hugo and Alita start to get like a romance together, and that they bond, and I really, really don't like Hugo. Have I said that again? Because I just think, first of all, like you said, he doesn't deserve her, and two,
he's 100% douchebag. He reaped, what he sowed. In this, he gets what he deserves.
the acting and the writing for Hugo are awful too, and I think it would have been okay to not have them have a romantic relationship, but they kind of force it, and it just.
Well, the thing is, I've always interpreted it as she's lost her memories, so she's a childlike. So she's responding to the first person that shows her affection in a romantical way, simply because she's craving life.
Yeah,
Once I figured if Hugo didn't die, she would have dumped his ass anyway.
So yeah, I mean, eventually you get to figure out about the conspiracy, and like Hugo, and then Alita wants to be on her own, and be her own bounty hunter, and they're like, oh, if you play the game, she wants to go travel to the sky place, and
And if you and Moto Ball, you can win all this money, and you can go up to Salem.
But she has to qualify, and then the other bounty hunters are getting paid off to stop her and to kill. That's where
we should introduce Vector, who actually, in some ways, he has a bigger part than in the original story, and other parts are smaller. And Mahershala Ali does his absolute best impression of Wesley Snipes. I mean, when I was watching this, I was thinking, man, this just reminds me of Wesley Snipes in the 90s.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of just like another take of what's his name? Damn it, the Blade. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, this is a much better characterization than in the manga and the anime. It's cringeworthy, especially with the dark skin and the big red lips, and you go, oh my god, why? You just want to hit your head and go, why?
So yeah, he's trying to teach her a lesson, or and like, oh, if I'm gonna help kill Hugo to make sure that you don't, that the murder is on you, and I was like, don't they have like DNA or other ways to solve the murders and stuff, and in the future, it just kind of felt a little, I don't know. Eventually.
Yeah, they were changing some stuff around, and it was getting to be. See, and I could tell the audience was getting lost with Nova. See, Nova can kind of use cyborgs that work for him and people with cybernetic implants. He can like take them over and speak through them. And the only visual clue you have is their eyes turn bright blue.
Which I did not catch, so I was kind of lost. I was like, okay, another person's talking. Okay, I guess, sure.
Yeah. And it would have helped if they had the voice change or something.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like...
Yeah, they cast Edward Norton as Nova, so why didn't they have him even speak? All they did with him is dress him up in kind of a James Cameron mad scientist cosplay.
So yeah, you eventually get to like a bar scene, and then like during the whole time, the first thing that Alita sees is like a little puppy, and she tries to play with it and save it from like this gigantic mech walking down the street that doesn't care about anything, and then eventually that's where you talked about with the dog earlier, and that was tragic, and the fact that she used his blood for, I thought that was actually really well done. That she's like, okay.
It's a big scene in the manga and the OVA where Zapan, which is his name in the movie, his name changes throughout adaptions. He's this pretty boy cyborg who has the hots for Alita, but Alita wants nothing to do with him. Hell, he makes Hugo look like a catch. He's such a scumbag.
Yeah.
And so he kills this other bounty hunter's dog. And all the kids crying in my row, I told them that that the bounty hunter put cyborg parts on him. Hell, no, he doesn't. But Cameron may do that, you know. So I'm just trying to get him to quit crying so I could hear the movie.
So yeah, and then the dog was being fine. It's part of the the one robot cyborg that is like a dog person or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of one note
Jeff
characters.
Jeff Fahey in a thankless role as the bounty hunter with all the robo dogs, and he had one meat body dog, which is who Zupan decides to. Yeah, and I'm gonna crack up saying that because we have a grocery store chain in the area called Zupan's.
So yeah, you get the under the bar fight with this big creature that was cyborg that has the multiple arms and that flies out, and you get Lita become dismembered, and it was actually really shocking because I didn't think that was going to happen, and the fact she keeps going and keeps trying to fight, it could have been,
Her, and the body that's destroyed is the Ito one that he had made for his daughter that she never got to use because she was murdered. So that cyborg body is completely trashed in this battle, and she's trying to crawl. And it's a great scene. She's trying to crawl away, and he grabs her, and he's like, "Say mercy," and then she goes, "F your mercy," and she didn't say F, and puts out his eye in a great. You can see even tore apart like that, she can still do Panzerkunst really good.
Yeah, and it could have been city kind of like the where she couldn't fight, but she nailed it, and it was so awesome of her to try to keep fighting even though she didn't have anything to fight with. You respected it, even though under different people that could have looked really ridiculous, but it worked. It worked in this movie.
And a couple of the bounty hunters respect her for what she did, so they come down to give her help, especially Jeff Fahey, basically Dog the bounty hunter comes down with his other robo dogs he's going to get some payback for his little fluffy meat body dog getting vivisected by this jackass.
Oh, we do forget there's like this one scene where Alita goes with her friends and like they go into like the ship, or she goes into like the Martian ship, and like she knows how to do everything, and it's just so interesting to see how that worked out. And
that's where she finds an old body, and she grabs it. So this is probably a ship from when the Martians attacked Zalem, and they weren't successful in this attack. I mean, they took down all the other sky cities, but they didn't take down Zalem.
And like, I guess they said that no one's gone in there, but it's like, why not? It doesn't seem like it was that hard, to get in there.
I know, it's kind of, it's one of those things it's one of the things that I've rolled my eyes in various versions of this about, okay, this has been 350 years. I mean, they would have done more than just strip it for copper wire.
Yeah, I mean,
just saying.
They could have easily had some kind of, robot in there, and like it scans anything that comes near it, and then it shoots it if it's like proximity or something, and like those weapons are so amazing that no one can touch it. that would have made sense. And then they scanned Alita, and it would have been, oh, you're clear. And then, that would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of fun because it was, I don't know if you're familiar with the Nintendo franchise Metroid.
Mm-mm.
So in Metroid, you play as Samus Aran, which is like a human in a robotic suit, and you explore the galaxy, and occasionally you get suit upgrades where you get a brand new suit that's way better than the last one, and it's a whole ordeal to get it, and you upgrade things, and it kind of reminded me of that. And so Dr. Ido didn't want to give Alita this power suit upgrade because he knew how powerful it was. And after she loses that fight, he doesn't have much of a choice but to do it.
Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't have another body on hand. And the junkyard, well, how much trash is he going to find that's a grade A body? Especially technology. What he's really scared of is this technology is so advanced, he doesn't know how to repair it. So he's scared because she's so reckless and takes so many chances, he's worried she's going to damage the body beyond, and he can't fix it. And then she doesn't have a body. But little do either one of them know that this body is self-repairing.
Yeah, it has like nanotech, and like it, once she changes her body to fit more who she was and gets more memories, and that's when she's like, all right, I'm going to be a badass, and I'm going to go figure things out and kill, and then be part of this rollerball team, and then, but like, they're like,
yeah.
oh.
And Ito makes her some skate feet, so he kind of gets behind it eventually. Makes her these skate feet that she can wear in the ring.
And then there's like a scene, we mentioned this before with the heart, where Alita's like, oh, you could just sell my heart. It's like a super grade platinum or something, and they could be rich enough to be able to do that. We don't have to do that. And I kind of understand that she was naive enough to think that saying her heart would be good enough, but like it really felt awkward, and it just was like, stupid girl. And it just
in other adaptions, I got the feeling that Hugo was honestly thinking about it.
And like she wouldn't be alive.
Yeah, what I'm thinking, because to me, Hugo, 100% dirtbag. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so then they go ahead and have the roller derby fight where she's trying to get good enough to play the game, and that's when all of the Nova gets all of the different other people to go after her in there, and then she manages to.
Yeah, he gets Vector to hire him.
And then they escape, and then Vector is, eventually actually has dirt on Hugo and tries to frame him for murder of this other guy that they caught. And it just, that part, I don't know, I wasn't really digging that part.
Yeah, he sends Zapan, he's a pretty boy cyborg. I'll get these guys straight, because a lot of these cyborgs, I have trouble keeping them straight.
Oh, robots look the same, don't they?
Yeah, I know, I'm a robot bigot. I'm a robot bigot. They all look the same to me. I'm sorry. I'll try to be better. No. I can change.
No, it's I'm joking around, but like a lot of the characters are kind of odd names, so it's kind of hard to remember who's who.
Yeah, especially since they've changed everybody's name almost.
And like a lot of the characters are just like one note, so it's like, okay, was it the dog guy? No, it wasn't the dog guy. Oh, was it the guy with the sword? Yeah, who was the guy with the sword? Okay, that. Oh, but the guy with the sword is also the guy with the pretty boy. Okay, and it's like, oh.
At the sword.
Which is badass.
Yeah. Alita really shows how badass it is.
So,
Because Zapan kills when they're trying to harvest parts. Zapan shows up, and then so he can kill Hugo and not get in trouble. He frames him for murder by killing the guy they were jacking the parts from.
yeah, and like I feel like that could have. It just seemed like too easy to do that. You know, it just seemed a little bit too convenient that they could.
Well, I took it as maybe we know that the bounties are set up in Salem. What we don't know is who's setting them. Is Nova setting them? See, if Nova is the one setting the bounties, it would have been nice if they explained this, how the bounty system worked a little better. Because if Nova's the one setting them, then it makes perfect sense. Because he could just do whatever he wants.
So, yeah, I mean, then out of nowhere, he gets chopped up. Hugo gets chopped up, and, Hugo calls Alita for help because they were supposed to, he was supposed to be there.
At the church. And then somehow Alita shows up with Chiron in tow, and she has a full medical equipment.
Yeah.
To remove Hugo's head and yet keep him alive with Alita's heart.
Yeah.
And she collects the bounty on Hugo, and then they rush to save Hugo's life, and then in the middle of all that, Alita gets Zapan's sword, and one of the best moments of revenge and satisfaction in the movie, she takes off Pretty Boy's face with his sword.
And it was cool. And, you eventually see that Hugo does survive into another robot. They get the parts. And
in this part, they really messed up. Because in the manga and the OVA, it's clear he does not take to having a cyborg body very well. He just goes completely batcrap insane. And totally has a meltdown and freaks out and flees. I mean, it's kind of fitting comeuppance because he jacked all those cyborgs and people with cybernetic parts. So it was fitting that he would lose his meat suit and get a hard body. And he runs away. All the movie does is show him laying there, and Alita's like, oh, and then he gets up and goes, and he starts climbing up the pipeline, oblivious to the fact that they do have a security system to keep people from climbing up the garbage chute, which is a spiked ring that goes up and down.
Yeah, and then he gets tore up by it, and Lita tries to save him, and she can't, and have to say goodbye, and he falls, and first time I saw the anime and he died, I cheered. In the anime, it never continued far enough to know if they were going to revive him. In every other adaptation, Hugo, whatever his name, is dead. And hopefully he stays dead in this one too. I mean, it didn't happen on screen, so who knows? Maybe he fell on a bird and the bird carried him. Maybe it was a pelican that flew by for some apparent reason, carried him over, and then, I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? That they could, if they really, really wanted to bring him back, which I really, really don't want him to come back.
I don't want him back.
They could, in theory, find a way to write it around.
But source material, he never came back. But I could see them bringing him back to be one of Nova's puppets.
Yeah, and
So Alita kill him all over again.
yeah, that could be something they could do, and you know, to save his life again, he has to do it again or something. Anyway, then you see Alita and like, okay, I'm gonna go out after you, Nova. And Nova's like, okay, bring it. And then she starts running, and then cuts to black, and then that's the end of the movie. Like a big cliffhanger. Does she go up to him? Does she not? And it pissed me off.
I just I knew it was going to end somewhere, and it was, to me, it was more satisfying than how the anime ended. So I'll be honest with my reviews. It is colored by my familiarity with the source materials, because this movie does take a lot of, because there's a lot of stuff in the anime that was not in the manga, and a lot of that stuff is in the movie. So I honestly consider the movie more of an adaptation of the anime more than the manga. But it does take stuff from the manga that's not in the anime. Because, I mean, there's a lot more material. There's 9 volumes, and it took from the first story. Hell, the Alita story is still being told in various series. I mean, it's still ongoing.
So, I know this kind of like is a trope of anime, and they have always cliffhangers, and there's a way to do a cliffhanger that is, fun, and, there's a way to say the story continues, but then there's a way to do it so that way it feels like you're getting, it doesn't feel satisfying. And that's for me where it was, where I didn't feel satisfied with that ending. I felt like we had more story there. And I was interested in it. I was interested in the Martian, stuff. I was interested in Alita because I like that character. I like the actress. I didn't really care about Nova. I think they could have saved Nova as, it's like, oh, Alita, you think you know the whole world, the whole story, but there's a whole lot more, and that's kind of a way they could have done it instead of having her like almost right there, It's not as bad as I've seen some cliffhangers where they're like about to kill someone and then cuts to black or something, stupid like that. But it is kind of just like annoying for me,
Yeah, because I don't remember Nova showing up this early. And the Martian stuff showing up this early. I think this was an attempt, and I thought it was not the greatest well done, but it was a nice attempt to try to give some backstory and depth. Unfortunately, it didn't give a sense of a complete story. Like I said before, this reminded me of a pilot episode of a miniseries.
Like when Vector was dying, you do get Nova talk to her. That could have been a real surprise, and that could have been the way they'd done it. Where it's like, oh, you killed Vector, you'd be happy now, Alita, but you don't know the whole story. Maybe like that could have been a way to do it, and it's like, you're not gonna find me, Alita. I'm more powerful than you can imagine. And then you see Alita like, what? And that could have been a way of doing it, because the way they left it was just such a kind of, it was just annoying to me. It was just angering. Hey, there's more story here, and wait a minute, no, that's not the way you do that. There's ways to do it right, and I felt like this was the wrong way of doing it. If they just kept Vector the main villain for the whole movie, simplified it, made it more simple, made it more straightforward, and then you could say, hey, you could even have that as like a almost a post credit scene or something, or end credits that Alita thinks she won, but then for a fact that you get Nova saying ha ha ha, Vector was a good vessel or a good puppet or something like that. That could have been a better way of doing it. So that's the ending pissed me off. It really did. And I looked online and there's no post credit scene or mid credit scene, or there's not even like a Alita will be back or anything like that. So So, I mean, I did enjoy my time with this movie. I did like it. I did want more. I just, condense it to make it, have less characters, keep the story a little more straightforward. I would definitely watch it if it became like a Netflix show. you know,
Mhm.
I don't know if Netflix is gonna take the bite and pay, a huge amount of money for a whole series of this, but
Well, this is well, I think even if this makes the 350 to 500 million or more that is needed to break even, uh, with Fox going bye bye, being bought and absorbed by Disney, this is Cameron and his procrastination and taking forever to do things. Because I mean, it took him 20 years to make this movie, get this movie made, and I don't think this is not Disney's brand. There is no way Disney would let a movie this violent come out under their name. No way.
yeah. I mean, it
So
was,
I don't. So unless they spin Fox off into uh, a hard PG-13 art R studio, I don't see Disney greenlighting a sequel to this.
yeah. There might be like a direct to DVD, Blu-ray animated version of the sequel to the story. That might be a way to, if there is enough demand for it. But I don't see Disney doing this either, and I don't see who would pick it up. If Universal would want to do this, or or DreamWorks or anything.
Universal's dead broke. So's Paramount. I mean, it's which studio is going to fold first or get bought out, or get it bought out.
Whatever, but you know what I'm saying, that there's like, I don't know
Yeah.
who else would want to do this.
I mean, depending on how it does in China and Japan, I could see a possible deal with Cameron getting back the uh buying the rights outright himself, or making a deal with Disney to get the rights and taking it to somebody like Lionsgate. I
Yeah,
could see that forward.
maybe it might, maybe it'll be like a Chinese movie studio that decides to continue the story, but
Because that's what's looking like what's going to happen with Warcraft.
so we'll see. But that's where it gets upsetting, because you don't feel like complete story. You feel like, oh, there's more. She's gonna go up to the see the top world.
And I would tell fans to read the manga, but this movie is so different from the manga. I don't think you would get a satisfactory conclusion from reading the source material if you want more movie.
Because, like, okay, even if she managed to go up to shoot or whatever and kill him, that doesn't really end the story, because you don't really know that much about Nova. So that wouldn't be satisfying to watch that. You'd be like, okay, cool for the moment, but then you're like, wait, who was he? What's going on up here? What's
You're gonna be reading so much material. I mean, and then that and the first story that Cameron envisioned for his trilogy of movies is these 9 volumes. But then there's additional series, and some of them are even longer.
Because I could imagine, Alita eventually getting up to the city in the sky, and that being its own entire adventure. And then, maybe she kills Nova at the end, but that's, the city in the sky would be a whole other story,
Oh yeah, I mean it goes into wild stuff, and I mean heck, even in one series, she gets a damn cat humanoid android body, and I was like, I'm done. Bye.
So yeah, there's a lot more story. It's like I said, it drives you crazy because I did like it enough that I want more, but then it left me unsatisfied. So I just like, no, I want more. I want, so okay. Well, I guess that's basically it for, spoiler-filled review of Alita. I don't know if we're ever going to get a sequel to this, and we should, but we're probably not, but who knows.
But it's still dazzling and a must-see for lovers of 3D.
And
I mean,
sci-fi and anime lovers.
Yeah, if you are hardcore 90s anime, you're going to dig this, and you're not even going to care about the story shortcomings, but the visuals are just going to see this on the biggest screen you can find in 3D.
Yeah, IMAX 3D if you can. And, even for me.
Yeah, see, I would have went to see this in IMAX, but in Salem, just down the street from me is a theater. It's not IMAX, but it's got a bigger screen than the two IMAX theaters within 100 miles of me.
Anyway, even for me, not being a knowledgeable of Alita's comic, or manga or anime or anything, I still managed to enjoy myself. And me being a critic, obviously, your enjoyment may be more so because you're not as critical as I am, but I still think it'll be a fun watch. If you're super into action movies, super into sci-fi, even if you don't care about anime or manga, you'll have a fun time with this. So.
And if you've got a daughter who's got a strong constitution and can deal with doggy death, and they're looking for another strong action heroine after Wonder Woman, give this a shot. She may love it. But if she wants to read the manga, you may want to think about it, depending on her age. You may want to take a look at it first. Because, like I said, it's even more violent.
All right, well, that's going to be it for us. Bye.
Bye.
All right, before this podcast ends, I want to give a thank you to my patrons. Right now, we have one patron, which is David from Spain, and I want to thank you for your financial support. All right, so that's going to be it for this podcast.
We now have a Patreon, and the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.
And we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a little bit everywhere. Just look for us 3D or 2D. And of course, review us on iTunes. And if you want to write us a letter, our email address is email3dortwo2d@gmail.com. So that's going to be it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.